Today I'm taking a look at the McFarlane Toys DC Superpowers Guy Gardner. How does he stack up to the rest of our growing Green Lantern Corps? And after this, am I calling it quits on reviewing Superpowers figures? Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Starting with the packaging, we have that Superpowers blister card I love so much, and while we do get some Guy Gardner artwork, instead of a name, we just get a generic Green Lantern logo. In fact, you have to read the bio to know that it's Guy Gardner. Well, or the shipping sticker, or the UPC, or I guess the price tag. The point is I have mixed feelings. I'm not sure if this wave is showing up in stores or not counting stores like GameStop, of course, but if it is, I do feel like you should clearly specify who the character is on the box. Not that we don't have a chart of all the available figures, a chart that's starting to look like a war memorial. I still love these blister cards, but it is an area that I do think could be improved. For packaging, Guy Gardner gets 4 points. Moving on to presentation, and Guy stands at about 4.5 inches, or about 11.5 centimeters, putting him nicely in scale with the original Kenner Superpowers, but not as much with a lot of the newer McFarlane ones. To McFarlane's credit, though, they are getting better in that department. Going into this review, the biggest question I had was how well he was going to fit in with the rest of the Green Lantern figures that McFarlane's made. Their first Lantern was John Stewart, and he was made using a very rich Crayola green that perfectly matched the original Green Lantern figure. But then McFarlane made their own version of this guy, and they went for a warmer shade. Although I don't like this particular hue as much, my hope was that they would just pick this and keep going forward with it. And once Kilowog came out, I was happy to see that they did in fact do that, and I'm pleased to report that Guy Gardner does as well, meaning that our newest batch of lanterns match up perfectly. Guy doesn't have any parts that are directly reused, but based on the shape of the legs, and especially the arms, seriously, just look at the muscles, I suspect that they took this Hal Jordan and sculpted over it to make this guy. And for the purpose of keeping him in scale, that's a perfect strategy. His face and signature hairdo have been Superpowers-ified. Tiniest bit of paint slop by the eyebrow on mine, but it's close enough to how he looked in the comics for my taste. Traditionally, there would be a black line to go with that white one, but again, this is Superpowers-ified, so I'm fine with that. The important thing is we have the turtleneck. I do appreciate the added details to the gloves, and for this scale, I do feel that the belt has been very well done. Additionally, there is some added detail in the boots, and while no action figure is perfect, can we at least agree that he looks more like Guy Gardner than the upcoming appearance by Nathan Fillion in Superman? In fact, for presentation, I'm giving Guy Gardner 5 points. Moving on to Poseability, and as always with Superpowers figures, this is gonna be brief. Working our way from top to bottom, and Guy can swivel his head side to side. He can also swivel his shoulders all the way around. Moving on down, and he has T-style swivel hips. Those allow him to kick forward and backwards. He's also got a single-jointed hinge knee with a 90-degree bend, and that's it. Every time I do a Superpowers review, I have to specify that the limited articulation is by design, and because of that, I always give these figures 5 points. Moving on to Playability, and this is going to be even more brief. That's because this Guy Gardner doesn't come with a single thing, even though his hand is clearly designed to be holding a lantern. Thanks to the matching colors, he can borrow Hal Jordan's, and strictly speaking, this line is cheap enough that you could buy an extra Hal just for the lantern if it bothers you that much. But if McFarlane wasn't going to give him a lantern, I wish that they would have just sculpted his hand differently, as is, and he just looks like he's waiting for someone to kiss it. As I've previously stated, original Superpowers came with action features, and while the new line does look nice, it doesn't really do much more than look nice. So honestly, anything that they can do to add some sense of value would really go a long way. Of course, Playability is more than just accessories, it's also about how well your figure plays with others, but let's be honest, Guy Gardner isn't exactly famous for playing well with others. For the first Green Lantern made by McFarlane, and here we have John Stewart, and once again Kenner and McFarlane versions of Hal Jordan. Rounding out our McFarlane Lanterns, and here we have Kilowog, but rounding out the Justice League are Kenner and McFarlane versions of Superman, Kenner and McFarlane versions of that classic blue and gray detective style style Batman. There's also the Hush version. Wonder Woman, both old and new, as well as the Flash, though I do like to pretend the McFarlane version is Wally, as well as the Kenner Aquaman with his oversized McFarlane counterpart. For one more classic superpowers hero in my collection and fellow Justice League International member, here we have Martian Manhunter, but for a couple of sidekicks, here's Nightwing and Tim Drake in a third-party cape. Veering into villainy, and for a couple of original superpowers villains, and here's Joker and Penguin, but for some McFarlane options, and here's the Batman Who Laughs, whose 15 minutes of fame seems to blissfully be over, and then here we have Deathstroke, classic-style Sinestro, the blue or black Manta, Brainiac, and the new 52-style Darkseid. For a similarly scaled retro figure, and here's the Mattel Secret Wars Iron Man, but for something a bit more current, and here's the Hasbro Epic Heroes Miles Morales. For a relative-scale comparison, here's Guy Gardner with Marvel Legends Retro and Toy Biz style Spider-Man, and as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. I loved you in Firefly. Well, thank you. Are you looking forward to seeing me in Superman? Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog was a classic. Yeah, but my appearance in Superman. And of course, you've gotta love Castle. Right, but Superman? So, how about that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? With the core Justice League being done, the only place for McFarlane to really go is to start filling out other teams. The fact that they've been leaning into the Green Lantern Corps is cool, but between Damian, Jason, and several Batgirls, there's lots of room to grow in the Bat family, and aside from a couple of repaints of this guy, they haven't even touched the Flash family. I love the villains we've gotten so far, and would really like to see them fill out the Legion of Doom. But do you see McFarlane giving us Giganta or Cheetah? 'Cause I don't. With characters like Blue Beetle already here, and Booster Gold in this very wave, I feel like we're inching towards Justice League International, and while Kenner did technically give us Dr. Fate and Mr. Miracle, Mr. Miracle's a rare figure that'll set you back hundreds of dollars on the aftermarket. I could see McFarlane making a Mr. Miracle or a Captain Atom, but at this point I have lost all hope in getting characters like Fire and Ice. Almost 50 figures in, and the only female characters we have are 3 versions of Wonder Woman. To McFarlane's credit, they do have a track record of addressing issues. Early releases didn't quite have that superpowers aesthetic, and they fixed it. The capes on earlier releases were cheap and crinkly, and had holes in them, and they fixed it. The early releases didn't have peg holes on their feet, and they fixed it. The new figures were way too big, and they fixed it. Mostly. Some of those early designs do unfortunately keep getting reused, and I really hope that they're able to recapture this Superman body in the same way that they were able to do Batman and Green Lantern, but if I'm being honest, I'm not entirely sure what my future with this line holds. I do plan on tackling Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, and Metamorpho, as well as the Bug Ship, but after that, I might just be done. If I am going to continue with this line, I have got to see more consistency, better value, and a much wider variety of characters. Getting back to Guy though, and he is mostly fine, but again, he would have really benefited from either a lantern or some kind of energy effect. As such, and for playability, I'm giving Guy Gardner 4 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. At $10 a pop, the superpower figures are fun and affordable. Even if I don't know what my future with this line holds, I do still enjoy what we've gotten. But not to beat a dead horse, with both John and Hal getting lanterns, it does feel like there is a bit less value in this box. Even with grading on a curve for it being a superpowers figure, for price I'm giving Guy Gardner 4 points, averaging out to a final total of 4.4 out of 5. For more superpowers related videos, check out one of these. Until next time, play nice and have fun.